All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that's actually the case. Over on Rumble, of course. High energy day. This morning didn't start out quite right. The baby was fussing the whole time, so I only got one video done, and I've got a couple of others that are rather interesting. I'll hold them over till tomorrow since they're not time sensitive particularly. We got to talk about lots of stuff today. We got to talk about the Target and Bud Light boycotts, how effective they've been. And now they're being aimed at Kohl's, which had a similar, sort of tuck in the penis display near the kids section in a couple of cases. So they're being targeted. Also Lululemon, and whether that takes off or not as an idea, we'll see. But we will be talking about those boycotts as well as Donald Trump and the DeSantis problem with interpreting why Donald Trump was popular in the first place. Because that's something that I've begun to see, and I see it from liberals as well. They're completely clueless as to why Trump was elected in 2016, and we'll be talking about that. Also, there were drone strikes in Moscow earlier today in the wee hours of the morning, and did some damage, actually, hit a couple of high rises. And Kiev also got bombed. We'll be talking about that story and much, much more, of course. First, though, we'll make sure we're live on Rumble. Yeah, we're live on Rumble. Excellent. We've got some chats coming in. Lemon Curd Zero, a gorgeous morning for one and all. Anything. Hey, LCZ. Wow, first time ever. Vincentius 1959, back to you from Oklahoma. And David's Dog Spa, good morning from Kansas. Many other good mornings and clankings going on over on Rumble, by the way. By the way, before I continue, I would just remind everyone there is a pinned link in the chat at the top on YouTube. It is also in the description cross-platform. In fact, let me post it out on Rumble really quick. Chat over there. There you go. My new book is available now, How to Debate Gun Rights and Win. This is an important work. It's 48 pages, so it's kept deliberately pithy. And the idea is to serve as a companion to people who want to promote the Second Amendment in its more expansive form when they're in debate with people who don't understand the Second Amendment. I point out various truths. I analyze arguments, whether they're weak or strong, and give some various debate points in that particular work. It's selling well, over 150 copies already in, less than 2 days. So I don't know if it'll probably be about as popular as Orange Man Big, which is pretty good, actually, by literary standards these days in a flooded market. By the way, Orange Man Big 2 is definitely under construction as we speak. I wrote the second section today. So give me a month or thereabouts, and you'll have your fill of more Schadenfreude at the expense of people with Trump derangement syndrome. In the meantime, I got 5 other projects literarily that I'm working on at the same time. More edits, second edits, a re-edit, several other works, fictional, non-fictional, academic works on politics, works on the occult. I'm running the gamut at the moment. I'm firing on more than all cylinders because I was holding myself back for the first 4 months of the year, and I'm getting bored. I want to do more editing. I want to do more writing because books are great. Dave DeMorin, Sticks, the humble pamphlet salesman. Well, 48 pages is a little bit more than a pamphlet, but yeah. None of your business. Take my fake Canadian money. How much would I have to donate to get a signed copy of Orange Man Big? If I was in the United States, basically just covering postage to return it to you. Right now I'm in the Netherlands, so it's more difficult to coordinate such things. I have a lot of people, by the way, that want signed works, and I always have to tell them the same thing. When I'm in the United States, it's a possibility. If I'm outside of the United States, I can't coordinate that. There's no telling whether the package will get lost on the way here or on the way there. And I don't want someone to get pissed at me and think that I stole their book or something like that. So, yeah, lots of good shit going on. Can I pin comments, by the way, on Rumble yet? Let me check this really quickly. Where's, no, I can't. Oh, well, that's something that I hope that they work on soon. At the very least, some months ago, they did make sure that chat didn't repeatedly fly back up to the top when people were sending new chats. So that's a good one. Anyway, we'll start right in with the news. Target and Bud Light investors lose billions on marketing misses. Target and Anheuser-Busch have lost a combined $28 billion in market value. That is damning, by the way. Budweiser is up a little bit right now by like 0.5%. But when your stock has declined so much, a little bit of an improvement it may not be that meaningful. Some people are thinking that Bud Light might be retired as a brand because it's doing so poorly right now that it's just become toxic to the parent company. Imagine that you have, arguably at least, the most successful beer brand in the world. Certainly the most successful in the United States and multiple other countries. And because of wokeness, because of ESG, you screw the pooch so badly that your flagship beer brand, the one that literally hundreds of millions of people drink on a regular basis, manages to fuck itself. It manages to fall flat, and you can't even give it away. It's expiring on the shelves and you're having to buy it back. I don't even, honestly, I don't know how you make such a terrible mistake. I would have done better in responding to the crisis after the Dylan Mulvaney thing. I think most of you would have as well. They had a unique combination of executives there that were completely off the rails, and that's basically why Budweiser is dead right now. It could be that Budweiser, as an actual brand, dies. I'm not predicting that. I don't think it's likely. They'll probably they'll try to cover their asses, but if people are continuously boycotting and they haven't read the room, you may end up with Budweiser being sold in everywhere but the United States, which is a huge beer drinking country. And it would be very, very funny if that were to happen. Target, of course, with their little Pride Month displays, selling, in some cases, explicitly satanic garments for youths, and also tucky underwear to hide your penis and make it clear that you're actually a girl because, you're a girl, I suppose, or whatever. They're getting hammered. They're getting hammered worse than Anheuser-Busch, actually. Their one-day drop was bigger. So over the coming weeks, depending on their response, it could get far worse for Target than it would for Budweiser. And that would probably collapse their company. They'd go Sears mode. They'd end up going bankrupt. Now you've got Kohl's. Kohl's is doing something similar to what Target has been doing. And there are multiple individuals attempting to promote a boycott of Kohl's for that reason. And then you have Lululemon for the same reason, now getting targeted as well. It's not clear that the boycott overextension, arguably at some point, will hit them as hard, but it'll probably hit them. They'll probably end up losing billions of dollars as well. This is showing something. It's possible to fight back against wokeness with boycotts. And I love watching the leftoids saying, well, it's cancel culture. Here's the right wing, the trad cons. Supposedly only a bunch of redneck Christians are doing this, which is wrong. I don't want kids sexualized either. And I think, take a look at me. Do I look like a right wing redneck Christian to you? No, okay. Anyway, I approve of the boycotting because it's hopefully it will put wokeness down for good. Hopefully it'll destroy it. It doesn't mean there won't be another authoritarian power grab in the form of a moral panic, but at least this current one will die off, which I think is a good thing. The dude that made the Target clothes managed to make Satan cringe. Yeah, as opposed to hell of a boss. Satan is pretty cool in that particular series, although you have not seen him yet. None of your business. I don't get it. There's only one beer company. Molson. Canadian beer is better. Yeah, no thanks. I've never been interested in beer for the most part. I have drank Bud Light and Foster's and a few others. Mostly I drank locally made beer from Vermont, when I was there. But beer is, it's just not powerful enough. If you want to get hammered, if you want to get slam-a-jam-it into another dimension, you're not going to be able to do it with light beer. So not unless not unless you're like 10 years old or there's something wrong with your liver function. Yeah, Kevin Rupert, Lucifer won't show up until Has Been Hotel comes out. They've been working on that for a very long time. That got memed up as Satan's Daughter, etc. Got memed up heavily at the time, and they sort of pivoted to Hell of a Boss, which honestly I think was wise. I think that the addition of Stolas, of course, on this shirt is a good idea. And I want like a Stolas show. Have him have an AI Stolas doing a talk show or something like that. Yes, Busch is part of the same family brand of Budweiser, same parent company. So is Corona. I think they gobbled that up, among others. None of your business. Yes, you're welcome. Yeah, no, I always preferred wine over beer myself. I never understood, like, light beer can be refreshing, but, you know, it's not really going to get you drunk unless you're sitting there. You're chugging so much of it, you must be pissing constantly. You know, you have to just, you have to have a toilet installed in your room, and you just sit there on the toilet intermittently pissing while you're chugging the beer in order to get mildly intoxicated. Yeah, Bush, and then they've got Corona. They've got a bunch of others, actually, as well. So I hope the boycotts succeed because in the end, the hope is that wokeness fucking goes away. It'll come back in the form of a new authoritarianism, possibly a right-wing tradcon one, but at least this current moral panic will have been put down like the diseased dog that it really is. Sparky InBev AB should have immediately fired their marketing team and let things cool off for a few months before hiring a new one. Yes. Insulting intelligence of the market was the wrong move. There's no going back. Yeah, the problem is that they responded, actually. They shouldn't have responded at all. They should have gone radio silent, which they're trying to do now. Now, they've basically ghosted their presence on Twitter and elsewhere and aren't putting out any releases at all. And the reason that they're doing that is because they finally realized after fucking themselves 5 or 6 times, hey, maybe we should just fucking shut up and let people forget about the Dylan Mulvaney thing. Imagine that you lose over $10 billion in value for sending a single small parcel of personalized beer to a TikToker. That's exactly what went on. The responses thereafter made it systemically worse time after time. And good riddance. People shouldn't drink alcohol anyway. Generally speaking, having a couple of drinks is fine, but you know, it's not really good for you. It's got a lot of calories for absolutely no purpose. Why not just smoke weed if you want to get your high on, get your fix? That's 0 cal. Yeah, it might give you lung cancer or something like that. You can always vape it, I suppose. But yeah, if you want to get drunk, I mean, doing it with Bud Light is about the least efficient way you can do so. I suppose now not so much, though. They're basically giving it away. So it's like, you know, it's back to the prices from when I was a kid, when they used to have beer stocked up front, by the way. I remember going to Gillingham's with my dad back in, it would have been 92 or something like that. Back then, Budweiser was sold individually in individual cans for nowhere close to $1, like 15 cents or something like that. And it was available right at the front, right next to checkout for all of the alcoholics. And they should bring those days back. Sorta retard. Good morning, Sticks. Good morning to you as well. Alan McGowan, Sticks, off topic, but what do you think of Hell of a Boss's recent episode? Also, do you think the show has a tone issue, i.e. flip-flops from ridiculous to serious? I don't consider that a tone issue. I consider that nuance. I actually like that. The latest episode, in my opinion, was less entertaining than all of the others. It was the weakest episode they've put out, the Western one with Stryker and so forth. It had some good features, but it just, compared to the other episodes, there was less of the depth that I want from the series. But, you know, any series is bound to have, you know, you're going to be able to categorically rank strongest, weakest, and the more episodes that you have, the more rankings you'll get. So I can forgive them for that. I would like to see more of Via in the series. I think that's personally, I've got my own ideas for potential plot lines actually at this point because I enjoy the series so much, but I won't talk about that on the live stream because this is a news live stream. We're supposed to be serious and shit. Eric writes, I just hope I live to see squirrel astronauts. Haven't they sent squirrels up into space yet? They've done that with monkeys and rats and stuff like that and fish. They should send some squirrels up, see how they interact with acorns when they're in 0G. Sparky, InBev AB acquired so many independent and regional breweries that they own over 400 different beers. Industry consolidation to the extreme. Yeah, but every single year there's like 10,000 new microbreweries that open up. Some of them pan out, some of them don't. Vermont has, by the way, if you are into beer, some of the best. You have Long Trail, which I do think does have a parent company now. You have Magic Hat. You have the Rutland Brewery, actually. Rutland Red, you know, in the few times that I drank beer, actually, you know, years ago, is actually a really good beer, admittedly. It's the only good thing to come out of Rutland in the last 10 years. Nick Ray, 47. What do you have to say to the idiots defending what these stores are doing in regards to pride gear for kids? I would say you're nuts. Even if only for pragmatic reasons related to debate and political ideology, you are fucking yourselves. It makes no sense to defend such a thing because you got to understand, you got to read the room. Even if you believe that you're right, if you believe you're justified, yes, the penis tucking underwear should be right next to the Jimmy and Sally aisle where they get their size 2 shoes. Even if you believe that, that is not a popular opinion. Here, the left is arguably acting more like right-wingers typically do, stealing defeat from the jaws of victory. They had the ability to simply argue for equality, good feelings. Hey, we're not perving on your kids. We're just celebrating pride or something. But they've decided to overstretch. Now look for the GOP tradcon side to overstretch as well in response and go from voluntary boycotts, which are fine. They're a form of protest. Nobody cares. Well, Target cares. Anheuser-Busch cares. But they're legal. There's nothing wrong with them. The left does it all the time. To trying to sponsor legislation or something like that. And they'll make it overburdensome, and it won't pass, and they will once again steal defeat from the jaws of victory. That is my prediction, by the way, with regards to this particular move when it comes to the so-called conservative movement. Dark Gary 92, I don't know. I'd rather drink liquor than beer if I want to get drunk. Yeah, you can. You probably get ulcerated, but Fuse 32, I do the cha-cha like a sissy girl. Sigil Stone 17. Morning, Sticks. How do you like your steak? Medium rare. Still mooing? Rare? Medium? Well done. Congratulations. Attaboy or Razor's Fist favorite Medal of Honor? Yeah, I'll take it medium rare, of course. And I like ribeye. That's, in my opinion, ribeye, medium rare, marinated for at least 24 hours beforehand is the proper way to do a steak. If it's a little bit over, like close to medium, that's fine. If it's a little bit less well done, that's also okay, although, it's a little bit less flavorful. Yeah, it's got to be medium rare. That's the way that I like steak. When I was younger, I always liked it well done. Medium well occasionally. That was as much as I would tolerate when I was a kid. The shoe leather steak, basically. Now, it's got to be medium rare. Finally, I got introduced to the joys of medium rare steak some years ago and never looked back. I was drunk at the time. I had to get loaded before I was willing to try it because I'd always been taught that the juices inside, that was blood, and that you get like worms from it. Of course, you generally can't with modern steak. It's farm raised. It wasn't. It's not from the wilds. That cow wasn't taken out in the middle of the woods. It was heavily vaccinated and raised in a pen usually. Jormangan, any thoughts on DeSantis getting legislation through Florida to waive all liability of space companies, SpaceX, Blue, etc.? Makes sense to grant them that because otherwise they won't want to work in your state. They'll go to Texas or another state that will. I don't have any problem with DeSantis on that one because it's pragmatic. King of Biltong, good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas. Hashtag Clank Nation. Yeah, there's some more beef funds. Be eating those. You should branch out, by the way. If you're operating in Texas, you probably could get gator jerky and make maybe gator biltong. Market it to hipsters. Here's an idea. Market it to hipsters as being healthier based on some element of the nutritional profile. And then make it woke. You can have a pride jerky or something like that. Just pretend you are eating a penis. It could work, by the way, dude. You could make millions. And then you can send even more super chats. So everyone wins. Next news story. Trump can't dismiss Ron DeSantis. He's never faced a GOP candidate like this before. Now, I don't really care about the article. The New York Post, they've kind of pivoted towards anti-Trumpism, although not completely. They're more balanced, not like Fox News, not like some of the publications out there. But what I wanted to point out is this. They're trying to compare the current electoral field within the GOP to like 2016 and times recently past. And I'll read a little bit of this actually verbatim. He is Donald Trump, and he's the head of every Republican voter and candidate. That's what 800-pound gorillas do. He, DeSanctimonious, is, of course, Trump's favorite put-down tag for the Florida governor. The mocking technique has served Trump well. Just ask low-energy Jeb Bush. But DeSantis is no Jeb Bush. And while it's too soon to predict the outcome of a nomination race that will last a year, it's not really too soon to predict with 90+% certainty, but okay. It is certain that Trump is facing the best funded, most successful, most prepared GOP opponent he's ever faced. Oh, really? Ted Cruz doesn't exist. Jeb Bush, I want to make the comparison. Jeb Bush was really well funded and shot out of the gate and was a front runner at one point in 2016. See, Donald Trump didn't rise up immediately. It took him a little while. Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz, and even to an extent Marco Rubio, were all ahead at one point in that race. Rand Paul was running up close to double digits at one point. I would have loved it if he had been the nominee. I would have voted for him in a heartbeat too. In the end, Trump gobbled him up. He got his endorsement. And by the way, that was a big move for me when Rand Paul endorsed Donald Trump. That tipped the scales towards me saying, okay, I'm comfortable with him if Rand Paul is comfortable with him because I trust Rand Paul's judgment. I made the right call, by the way. I'm very pleased about generally what happened from 2016 on to 2020. Not so much thereafter, though. Yeah, now that the economy is tinkering on the brink of recession. For a host of reasons, including that Trump soon will turn 77. Yeah, really meaningful. Nobody cares about age. They care about mental wherewithal. Biden doesn't have it. Trump seems to. And his shtick is tired, while DeSantis is a party superstar at just 44 and eager for a fight. Insulting nicknames aren't going to do the trick this time. I would like to point out that a lot of people are missing the point about why Trump was elected in 2016, why he became nominee, why he won the general. A large portion of his voting base just wanted to flip the bird at the establishment. They're not doing that with DeSantis. People who like the ideology overall broadly, but simply have a problem with Trump and or his electability are backing DeSantis. Those of us who still want to flip the bird again, by and large, are still defaulting to Trump. And then you have people that are off in la-la land and they think Nikki Haley or Mike Pence or whatever have a chance. They don't. This is a two-man race, by the way, in the Republican primaries. Unless both of them were to keel, it is Trump v. DeSantis for the nomination. There is no other viable contender. There will be no other viable contender. There's, as far as I can tell, there's no dark horse candidate possible to be offered up. Like Christie can get in. He'll average maybe 3 points. Pence can get in. He might almost crack double digits. That's about as good as you can have. By the way, the more people that enter, the more certain it is that Trump runs away with it. Trump has a core fan base of about 45%. He's perilously close to securing the nomination without doing any outreach whatsoever to any disaffected voters that may be hesitant to vote for him. He barely has to do anything. DeSantis would have to do a great deal. Nobody else could possibly pull in the work or the money necessary to do what they would need to do to end up arguably even at 20, where DeSantis currently is comfortably. So here's the thing. We got to understand. A significant proportion of those voters fucking hate the establishment. They simply dislike the way that things are running. They recognize that it's wrong, that they believe that it's improper, and they see Trump as a cudgel, something to break the toys with. Do they think the same about Ron DeSantis? Some people do, but it's a smaller proportion. So when DeSantis people are fooling themselves into this mythology that Ron DeSantis is going to be able to come out of right field and outflank Trump, you got to be kidding me. And when liberals, or people at the New York Post apparently put out articles like this and say, well, Trump's boring now. What are you talking about? There was never a dull moment in his presidency. The only thing that Trump should do is get back on Twitter. Then it would be 100 times more energetic. And if there's one mistake Trump could make and potentially sink his chances, by the way, in the process, it would be not getting back onto Twitter. All hell would break loose. The entire legacy media will canvass it. Millions of people will subscribe to his feed, many of which will just be there to hate watch and instantly reply using botting. The Krasenstein's probably getting banned again in the process of doing so. That's the only real mistake that Trump could make at this point, is not getting back on Twitter. People like the circus show. It's fun. Politics does not have to be boring or littered with decorum. I would point out right now you've got John Fetterman showing up to meetings and shit and to make speeches wearing a hoodie and shorts. What decorum? There is none left in government. People have thrown that aside and decided it's not important. Sparky, it's more than just uncanny Valley Mulvaney, like the Yellow Vests in France. Bud Light's boycotts a protest about the feelings, and that's that things in general aren't headed in a good direction. Yeah, I agree. King of Biltong, you sent another good morning from Antons in Roanoke, Texas, hashtag Clank Nation. Even more meat, Jesus Christ. You're gonna give me a heart attack, dude. Some grumpy goat. Stick's been following you for over 8 years now and really love your content. What's your view on us goats, and do you think we are the best farm animals to have? Also, what's your favorite herb to use? If I could only use one herb for the rest of time, it would be basil. Basil is the best, in my opinion. We're not counting garlic because, like, that's different. We're talking about leafy herbs and seeds and shit like that. Basil. Close second would be caraway, actually. Caraway is fucking delicious. As far as goats, yes, goats are great. There are goats. There's a goat farm actually not far from here, and we take our daughter there occasionally, and she likes the animals. They've got goats, they've got cows, they've got a couple of kangaroos actually, and it's like a little petting farm. You can pet most of the animals and buy feed for them and everything. They got pigs, one of which appears to have a cancerous tumor on its jowls, but okay. Shit ton of chickens, and there's one horny rooster who fucks the chickens all the time. Like every time you go. Every time you go there, he's raping one of the chickens. And yeah, and I guess that's an opportunity to explain the birds and the bees to your kids or something. Mojo Hansen, socialists are more aligned to Stalin than Biden. Depends on the socialist. Ozzy's Robots, morning sticks. Isn't it strange all this equity nonsense is astroturfed at the same time? Top down from the government and corporations. Social engineer much? Moral panic much? I explained that in Wokeness is Wrong. By the way, again, to people that didn't hear, my new work is available. Pinned link in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. Cross-platform in the description. Argue about guns. Destroy the anti-gunners arguments. Don Jones, as a man who is gay, I reject the woke and never liked the rainbow flag. At 63, my life parallels the civil rights movement, and now I see it disintegrate. Anti-gay hatred will make a comeback, only a matter of time. Yeah, unfortunately, it already is making a comeback. And that is because of people, in some cases, they're not even gay. They're allies. They're the A in the LGBTQA plus MAP 123 IOU, or I don't even know what the acronym is now. They're people who themselves don't even live a gay or lesbian or whatever lifestyle, and they're making money off of it. They're grifting because there's an ideology, a sub-ideology that's been created, and IdPol always makes money. You carve people up into smaller groups, you get them against each other, and then you choose a side, and then you make money off that side, supposedly promoting them. David Duke that has been doing this for years with white people. Al Sharpton, his compatriot, has been doing it with black people. And now it's a thing with the gay community. Aquafan, I like DeSantis. He's my governor, and he's a great governor. I want Trump as POTUS in 24. I'd like to see DeSantis as Secretary of State in 26 and POTUS in 28. After HB 269 and some of the other problems that DeSantis has had, I challenge whether he would actually be up to the job. He's doing a good job as governor, by and large, making some mistakes, although there are plenty of things he's doing well. I think that he should remain in Floridian politics. After his gubernatorial bid ends, run for an empty House seat there or something like that. Get into Congress. Sparky, rural folks eating beef well done is to kill bacteria and a legacy of refrigeration not being common in the country until several generations ago. Passed down in families, it's gradually going away. Yeah, I mean, because well done meat doesn't taste as good unless you slather it with chicken. I mean, with ketchup. With chicken. Ozzy's Robots, JFK Jr. believes Bitcoin hedges against oligarchs. Yeah, that is one good thing about him, but then he's also a desperate anti-gunner. I wonder why. Could it be because of your daddy and his brother? Is that why you're anti-gun? I wonder. Sigil Stone, Trump could solve DeSantis and his sycophants easily by going full tycoon on camera and backhanding the shit out of Ron. That'd earn him a lot of votes. Possibly. Swamp Donkey 69420. We should not be ruled by a gerontocracy. We need age limits, no one over 65, and term limits, 2 terms only. Direct family cannot run either. I disagree with that. I have no problem with dynastic lineages if the people that are being voted for do a good job. I have no problem with a person who's 100 years old running for office as long as they are competent. I do have a problem with people like Biden or Feinstein or, at this point, Fetterman, who are demented, who have mental problems. But then again, I just described most of Congress, even people that are in their 40s and 50s, so who gives a fucking goddamn shit? Vincentius 1959. Watch for Big Mike to come out of the back stretch. What a cluster that would be. I want to clank, but drink my Java Black. Semper Fi. Oh, you mean Michelle Obama? No, Michelle Obama has already ruled out running, and I believe that the Obamas have already supported Joe Biden. Swamp Donkey also raised the voting age to 25. I oppose that, and I'll explain why. Must be either a landowner, quarter acre and up, or own a home or buying a home. If you have received government assistance within the last 3 or still on years, no vote. The problem is if you raise the voting age to 25, what have you just done to people who are between the ages of 18 and 24? You've removed them as members of the militia. You therefore make it possible to violate their constitutional rights, especially the Second Amendment. So I would oppose that. If you are talking about you have to be paying in, so you pay taxes and therefore you're voting, if you want to make it based on your ability to actually contribute, that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine with me. I would also point out that owning a home is more difficult in some areas than others. You would effectively be depriving people in the suburbs, in some cases, of a vote. That would be tenuous. That also, I don't think that the American people would vote for anyone that had this as a platform, so it's kind of a non-issue. Aussie's Robots, I see ESG and equity here as Marxist infiltration. Yeah, I would agree. It's Marxism. Also stems from a moral panic being used by Marxists. Next news story, there have been drone strikes in Moscow. I think for the first time, actually. Areas along the border in Russia have been hit by Ukrainian forces before. This is the first time that the capital of Russia has actually been hit. I would expect a response, probably today. I would expect that this has something to do with the movement of nuclear platforms, mobile nuclear missiles into Belarus, actually. The brinksmanship continues. Because the Western world is incapable of conducting diplomacy, all of this has happened. If Trump were in office, there never would have been an invasion to begin with, because the Russians would be scared to have invaded Ukraine. The Ukrainian leadership is not taking this seriously at this point. When you're commanding drone strikes or you're encouraging them by potentially dissident forces in Russia within the capital itself, that is a very dangerous game. You open yourself up to Russia potentially declaring unilaterally at some point in the future. I don't think this happens, but the fact that I'm discussing the possibility, fucking listen to me, is the problem. What if Russia comes out tomorrow? Putin gets on TV, says, "Dear Russian people, we've been attacked on our domestic soil by Ukrainian terrorists. Well, we're going to take fucking care of this." And then they fire a nuke at Kiev. How does the West respond? They're already under sanctions. The Chinese won't abandon them. They see eye to eye with the Russians, so you're not going to be able to do anything further at the UN. There's no military response that we can launch. Are we going to launch nuclear weapons at Russia and fry the entire world? No. This is what I've warned of for more than half a decade. This is how MAD breaks down. A nuclear force realizes that with impunity, it's capable of targeting third-party nations without any meaningful retaliation because it's already been pariahed to the point where there's nothing further any other country can do. Are you going to stop their planes from flying out of Russian territory by flying sorties? If you fire on them and they fire back, well, then you're in a war. Are you going to stop their ships? Well, that's great for the Black Sea because, of course, the Bosphorus is controlled by Turkey, which is under the leadership of someone who talks well of both Putin and the Western world, I would add. What do? Do you sink the ships in the Aegean once they get into the Mediterranean? Do you allow them to use the Suez Canal to go through the Straits of Gibraltar? Or do you kill them? At what point does Russia then target somebody else? What you've done is you've gotten rid of mutually assured destruction, the only thing preventing a nuclear war, because now it's clear. Either a war breaks out directly, or one side feels it can act with impunity with nuclear weapons, and war doesn't immediately break out, and then they use it more. Either way, you end up with World War III long term, or you end up with one side backing down, proving that it's not capable of constraining the other, and the winner takes all, probably leading to a nuclear war when the leadership changes in the other country as the population gets so mad it revolts. So I would caution people when we're talking about even a handful of relatively meaningless drone strikes in Moscow. And although I don't like the fact that Ukraine's been invaded, and I feel sorry for the Ukrainian people, we as non-Ukrainians, by and large, I don't know if there are any Ukrainian viewers out there, we need to approach this from a measured manner, and we need to try to conduct diplomacy. But there is no current attempt to do so. The Russians have shut out diplomacy. Zelensky has largely shut it out. Biden is unwilling to engage in it and incapable. Other countries that tried, like France with Macron, have failed. And it's getting desperate because the fact is, this long after the official Cold War ended, we shouldn't even be discussing the possibility of having a nuclear exchange. There shouldn't be nukes moving around from any nation. I think that the United States is now optioning the concept of putting nuclear systems in Taiwan, while Russia is putting them actively right now in Belarus. It is a reheating of the Cold War. We've been through this fucking horse shit before. Yeah, it gave us great music. It gave us great films. We get Rambo, and we get bungees, and we get people, psychedelic furs, and we get people just dancing around on cocaine because they're like, I'm going to die tomorrow anyway. I don't give a shit. That's fine. But we can bring back neon and Art Deco without destroying the entire world, I would point out. Unfortunately, apparently, most countries currently are led by people who are imbeciles. They're incapable of any actual leadership whatsoever, and they need to be overthrown because they're fucking retards. And that's the long and short of it. We can have better leadership in the United States, but we're going to have to wait another year and a half at a bare minimum, and that's assuming that the election is fair. So, yeah, what are we going to do in the meantime? BW, do you think California reps might pass for black votes? And if the courts rule student debt unlawful, do you think that will happen with Republicans too? California opposed that. I don't know what you mean by black votes. I don't know exactly what you're referring to. I think the courts will rule the student debt forgiveness scheme unlawful in the end. I think that it will be beyond injunction. Biden will then use it as a campaign pledge. Well, if you reelect me, this time I'll do it through legislation. We'll have a budgetary notion behind it instead of just an EO, and then it'll be fine, which it would, by the way. If it's appointed by the House, it becomes legal. Republicans, I don't know exactly what they'll do about it. It depends on what happens in 24. Ken, what do you think of a law that restricts editing or stealth editing internet articles without complete disclosure of what had changed? I oppose it. I think that people should be allowed to stealth edit, and I say there's a much more pragmatic solution. When you see something that's screwy or clearly wrong, archive it. Well, then you've got the archived link. I do it all the time. Aquafan, I voted for him to be my governor for 4 years, not 2. That's why I say 26. He needs real foreign policy experience. That's why I say Secretary of State. I'm out on whether I would support him in a 28 run at this point, considering some of his issues. I gave Ron DeSantis months and months, chance after chance, to prove that he was what he said he was, which is basically, hey, I'm Trump, but I'm younger. That's basically the shtick. And he's disproven that time and time again over the last couple of months. It's disappointing, really. BW, also, you think no labels will siphon some votes off Biden? Sorry, just woke up. Depends on who they run. It seems to be a sub-movement, though, because they don't get talked about a lot. Well, let's see here. Aussie's Robots. The general public has never cared about a war than they do in Ukraine. Never cared less about a war than they do in Ukraine. The minority that do have simply been persuaded by a corrupt government media, in my opinion. Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that don't care a lot about it. I care. I don't want anyone to suffer and die, but it's more like, are our actions with regards to it doing any good, or are they just antagonizing? I think mostly they're just antagonizing. It's to make money. Nick Ray 47 on Rumble. DeSantis has completely lost my support with his boringness, red flag laws, his unwillingness to support and defend Trump through his bullshit indictment, and HB 269. He's done. I feel similar. Il Sarto. My radical opinion, only married couples with at least one child should hold office or vote. Yeah, but a lot of us wouldn't have time to hold office. Swamp Donkey. The American right needs to take a page from Mao. Let the leftists and globalists fight Ivan, then take over every department while they're away. Yeah, I mean, if you want to send all the cringe fringers over to Ukraine, that's perfectly fine. And they won't last very long. Sigil Stone, I think you're basing your assessment of Russia on long outdated information. It seems Russia has been under Putin's mafioso rule so long, their military is incompetent and can't stop Ukraine. That depends on what news station you tune into. Fog of war style, as I warned at the outset of this war, we do not know who is winning. We know very little about the strategic arrangement in Russia or in Ukraine because everything is propaganda, which was predictable. Next news story, we got some shenanigans from Spain. Spanish Prime Minister calls snap elections after setbacks. We use that term loosely, as CNN article. I wonder why. In local polls, yes, the socialists there have been absolutely gobsmacked. They've been crushed. So what did the socialist prime minister decide to do? Talk to King Felipe VI and say, quick, hold an election. Let's stave off these losses and try to do better and hope for the best. Yeah, effectively what they're doing is trying to enshrine socialism as a dictatorial system in Spain. Hopefully they lose. Now, the Spanish people should be aware of this grift. If you are from Spain, talk to your friends and neighbors about this. The commies want to basically enslave you. You should kick them the fuck out. There's a reason why people in the local and regional polls there defeated the socialists so widely. It's because they're tired of the dysfunction. The socialist pig-in-a-poke government has not afforded the Spanish people the representation that they need, and so people got pissed. They get tired of it. Sanchez government has been a staunch ally of Ukraine. I like how they work that in, sending tanks, air defense systems, and other aid to Kiev following Russia's invasion. I hope they didn't send Spanish MREs. Spanish people out there, your food is great overall. Your military rations fucking suck. The isotonic beverages in there, I don't know. They have this weird slimy texture. It reminds me of aloe vera, like, aloe drinks, which if they're flavored properly, like they're at least drinkable. I don't know what the fuck your military did with the isotonics, but they made them basically inedible. And it's the only ones that I've encountered that are like that. So to tell them to do better domestically is pushed a progressive agenda, including policies on women's rights and a euthanasia law. Yeah, just kill the dissidents. We'll call it euthanasia. Well, this person got sick because we poisoned them. And so now we're putting them out of their misery. So to the people of Spain, kick the socialists out. Do everything that you can to always keep leftoids out of power, and your nation will be a better place. G. Carroll, thanks for helping me get through the workday. You're very welcome. Apache, do you think polls were fixed so Ranald would run early? No, I don't actually. Aussie's Robots, we had more war footage, 91 Gulf War pre-cell phone. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of a lockdown situation over there in the Ukrainian wars. Well, I mean, journalists won't go there. They're uninterested in actually traveling there and doing their job. So, BW, reparations. Nix, Trump 2024, you're fired. Yeah. Next news story, Lukashenko offers nuclear weapons to nations willing to join the Union State of Russia and Belarus. So effectively, it appears that Lukashenko is announcing a pseudo-confederacy in which Belarus has rejoined the Soviet empire, effectively. Can I point something out here? I realize that this is largely hyperbole. And Lukashenko has done this before. He likes to speak ahead of Putin, and then he sort of gets pulled back in. He's on a too loose of a leash. Putin needs to talk to his attack dog here in Belarus and tell him to quit yapping. Anyway, do you remember when the Soviet Union gave nuclear systems to the Chinese, and then the Chinese hauled off and developed their own form of communism, and the Soviets spent the next couple of decades fighting with them over who was pure or not? And then they randomly invaded various countries, trying to outmaneuver one another, thus distracting and breaking apart the Eastern Bloc that otherwise would have been unified against the West, literally causing the collapse of the Soviet Union and the necessity economically for China to embrace, well, not capitalism, but a capitalistic facade. Yeah, that actually happened. China invaded Vietnam twice. They had differences of opinion over Pol Pot. They had differences of opinion over Vietnam. They had differences of opinion over Afghanistan. They had differences of opinion over one another. One of their former buddies, Tito, probably killed Stalin, by the way. This has been done before. The proliferation of nuclear systems to third-party nations is a terrible idea. This is why I don't think we should put nuclear systems in Taiwan. I just think that we should pressure them to have a Second Amendment-style thing and then drop crate after crate of AR-15s there. and 50 cows and grenades and all of the other goodies. Just arm the island to the brim so that any invading force takes so many spectacular casualties, even establishing a beachhead, that they rule it out. You don't need nuclear weapons to accomplish that. When Russia puts nuclear systems in Belarus, it's an antagonism of the West. I realize that it's sort of a flip reaction to the United States moving certain systems closer to Russia, as well as the possibility of Ukraine and NATO. Not that that changes the fact that Russia already borders NATO, which is kind of a lame excuse by the Russians. Of course, Finland is now joining the NATO fold as well, possibly others. I think what was it? It was Finland, and then Sweden is still on the table because Erdogan hasn't quite ruled them in. I wonder why you wouldn't want Sweden to be part of your military alliance, by the way. They're doing so well. They have such a large and potent military force. Everyone wants to fight on the side of the Swedes. I think Erdogan might be right on that one. Anyway, offering nuclear weapons open-endedly to these nations is beyond his ken anyway, because they're not his. The nuclear platforms moving into Belarus are being used by Russians that are in Belarus. If this happens with like Kazakhstan or something like that, I don't even know what strategic purpose Kazakhstan would have. Okay, it gets you closer to a bunch of other nations that are either non-aligned, allied with you, like Iran or India or something. Well, India's on the fence, or irrelevant. Okay, yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense. It sounds more like posturing. For strategic purposes, this sounds more like a posturing from Belarus to say, hey, we exist because none of you can find our nation on a map. I mean, other than myself and a handful of clankers, none of you, even half of you, don't even know that we exist unless we're in the news. So let me bloviate. Let me make a big statement about how we're going to nuke the world with another nation's nuclear systems, by the way. I'm not too worried about it. Some people are freaking out. Oh my God, nukes are on the move. No, it's not that abnormal, really. It's just another fucking escalation we don't need to have. James Flowers, Last in the Real Deal is an album you should check out. Ruger Hauer collab before he passed. E-Police and Social Recluse are my two favorite songs. Sounds cool. Harvey, Sticks, how come you never cover any European or British politics? Used to a lot more. I do sometimes. You know, England, Brit-Bongistan, and also the Netherlands, of course, because I'm currently physically in the Netherlands. Sparky, Ukraine war was in the works to break up Russia, and Trump's 2016 election spoiled that. The delay in provoking Russia gave Russia time to get ready. No, I don't agree with that. I think that the intent was simply for Ukraine to fully join the Western fold. Originally, in the wake of the Cold War ending, Russia optioned the concept of joining NATO. That didn't end up, unfortunately, happening. You could have had a northern alliance. You could have counterbalanced China with overwhelming force and land area and manpower that would be incapable of being overcome by any force in the world, but they chose not to do that. Next news story. Senator Dianne Feinstein confused by VP Kamala Harris's participation in tie-breaking vote. Feinstein was away from the Senate from February until May, dealing with complications from shingles. By the way, by complications, they mean that her brain got swollen, she got encephalitis, and she is now fucking half brain dead. California Senator Dianne Feinstein, a Democrat, of course, was reportedly confused last year after observing Vice President Kamala Harris presiding over the Senate for a tie-breaking vote. She appeared unaware during one vote as to why Harris, who had previously broken numerous ties, was taking up her role as president of the Senate, according to a report from the New York Times, which means we'll take it with a grain of salt, but it's pretty believable. A witness included in the report said Feinstein allegedly asked colleagues, "What is she doing here?" So, Dianne Feinstein is now even less aware than in this particular instance from last year. What does that mean for her actual ability to do her role as a senator? It means she can't do it. I now fully side with the Democrats. At this point, having a member of the Senate that is incapable of doing their job in literally any capacity. She can barely walk for a few steps. She gets wheeled around in a wheelchair. She has difficulty speaking. She clearly has difficulty understanding what's going on. She's mistaking one person for another. She's getting sick all day. She had fucking brain swelling, et cetera, et cetera. She needs to leave. She needs to resign from the Senate. And people people know why this is happening. Pelosi has ordered her daughter to effectively lead her around like a little lost puppy to protect Adam Schiff in that particular potential seat. That's what's happening. And it's all about politics. At this point, I hate to use the term because normally when we say it, it's a joke. We're talking about, oh, Joe Biden's being elder abused by Jill or something. While Joe is on his way out to lunch mentally, he did have the capability when he launched his campaign to know what he was getting into. Maybe not now for the second campaign, but I don't genuinely believe that that's elder abuse. With Feinstein, I genuinely do. This woman is pushing 90 years old. She doesn't know where she is. She doesn't know who she is. She's the least coherent member of a Senate that also includes fucking Fetterman. They're not even comparable, actually, in coherency terms. She needs to leave. At this point, it's no longer, hey, the Dems, ha, ha, ha. You know, it's a joke to people like myself. Ha, ha, look at this gerontocratic Democrat. She doesn't even know who she is, can't hold her bowels in. It's no longer fucking funny. The woman's old as fuck. She's falling apart mentally and physically. Let her go out to pasture. Stop trying to defend Adam Schiff. What happens if, by the way, in the next year, what happens if she fucking dies? What happens if she croaks before that particular primary system plays out? Well, then the Dems are really up shit creek without a paddle. I hate to give advice to a political party that I generally despise, but when I see someone who's pushing 90 years old getting treated like this, it's a little bit beyond the goddamn pale. The liberals, by the way, that are calling on her to leave are fundamentally right. It's time that people admit to that. Let her go. She was never a great senator anyway, unless you're a far leftoid to begin with. Let her go. Get somebody else in there. You look at her. She looks like a goddamn literal ghoul. She looks like she's melting. Like they took an animatronic skeleton, like a programmed mannequin, and they stitched human skin over it. And sometimes it kind of vaguely resembles a human being. She is clearly not all with it. She's clearly completely out to lunch. Let her retire. At this point, she's so demented. How can you even, legally speaking, how can she serve? Isn't there some sort of regulation within the Senate that says, hey, a person who clearly does not know what they're doing and cannot physically do their job has to get the fuck out? Maybe we need such a rule. Suck Duck, your opinion on profit caps for life-saving meds. I don't believe on any form of profit capping. I believe if you got government more out of the pharma industry, the prices would come down organically. Right now, we have a quasi-monopoly where a handful of government-tied companies are the ones making all the medical devices and medicines, and that's why the prices are high. Non-competitive. They get government contracts, and so they don't have to lower the prices. The Patriot Cairo, the vast majority of government spending of tax money ends up in money laundering schemes and embezzlement. I have a fantasy where we all just stop paying. Yeah, if everyone stopped paying taxes at once, maybe the problem would be solved. Then you have a bigger problem, though, of China taking you over. So pick your poison. Sparky, nuclear weapons technology is nothing against our clank technology. Yes, propaganda actually is more powerful than nuclear weapons. You can get a population that you can't overtake through any other military method to obey you. Sigil Stone, U.S. decides to really shake up global politics, gives 100 nukes and 2 aircraft carriers to North Korea. Well, we already did jumpstart their nuclear program. Let us remember, it was Bill Clinton who gave them a nuclear reactor and enriched material. And they promised him in return, we'll let weapons inspections take place. The energy agency can come in, make sure we're not making any weaponized shit. Don't worry, we'll sign the NPT eventually. And then they made nukes. Thanks, Bill. Next news story and the final one. Please send no more super chats because we're getting up towards an hour now. McCarthy's debt ceiling deal with Biden comes up short on his vow to rein in IRS. I see people right now that are actually hailing the McCarthy-Biden deal as though it was a good thing. Well, we managed to trim a few $1 billion out of this bloated budget. We made a savings. I think McCarthy is taking credit for like $2 trillion in savings. Where the fuck are you getting those numbers from? Your asshole? They're definitely shit, so I would imagine that's probably where. The IRS is set now to be expanded massively over the coming decade. Biden, in the end, got his way. I saw one news story. It's probably on RCP right now. It's like, well, Biden caved on the budget. He didn't get everything that he needed to get. What are you talking about? Kevin McCarthy gave up literally everything to Joe Biden in this so-called deal. It's not even a negotiation. I side 100% with Donald Trump for saying the negotiations, effectively, they never should have even taken place. Let the government default. I stand with the farthest right segment of Congress and the goddamn leftoids on this who don't want to pass it because they didn't get enough of their spending bullshit. I stand with them. I hope there are enough dirty commies and populists and even far-right tradcon authoritarians in Congress to stop this from passing through the House. I hope that they can establish even a vote in the end. Unfortunately, I don't expect that to happen. I expect them to pass what is effectively a very, very slightly modified Biden budget, thus collapsing the economy. And I suspect that when the recession hits, which it will over the next year, I expect Joe Biden to come out and he'll blame the usual idiots. He'll blame McCarthy in one sense. Well, things would have been fine if they hadn't trimmed my IRS expansion. And McCarthy didn't even dicker around on the student loan debt debacle. I guess he figured the courts will take care of it. It's not a deal. It's what negotiations even happened. Here's what I think happened. Joe Biden and Kevin McCarthy are basically on the same team. They're both unipartyists, neocon, neolib. They're identical. They just have a different letter after their name. They got together months ago, and they already cleared it with each other what the plan was. Biden pretends not to be willing to negotiate, setting up we've got a hardline situation here. We're going to have to get down to brass tacks situation. McCarthy comes in and says, well, here's our counter to your budget. Oh, look at all the wonderful things. You don't get an IRS expansion. You don't get the student loan debt forgiveness bullshit, which won't even probably go through the courts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Snap and end, all of these other things. And in the end, they wait until a couple of weeks before the debt default, before the debt ceiling is hit, with Yellen coming out and telling the American people lurid stories about all the terrible things that'll happen if it doesn't pass. And then lo and behold, not much more than a week before that deadline looms, they strike a deal. And the deal is basically the original budget, with a very small number of concessions, several of literally which mean absolutely nothing. That was always their plan. Their plan was to pass effectively the Biden budget. The compromise, so-called, is what they both wanted to begin with. Biden was like, well, I'll tack a little bit more onto the IRS expansion. Then you get credit from the dimwits within your party for having parsed it down slightly to the number that I really need in the first place. You can get the SNAP changes because they're meaningless. We're actually expanding the number of people who will be on SNAP. We're just adding a work test for a handful of people, many of which will just skirt that anyway. So in the end, what this is a neoliberal, far spending budget that both of these people wanted. We were warned about it by Trump. We were warned about it by Massey. We were warned about it by people like Rand Paul. You were warned about it by various content creators that were skeptical that anything meaningful would happen. I pointed this out months ago. Yeah, okay, they'll get some concessions. If he's being genuine, he's going to focus on the IRS expansion first and foremost, and then the discretionary COVID spending number two. He got a little bit of the COVID spending, McCarthy did, which Biden has no problem with because it's a pittance. It means absolutely nothing. It's a drop in a goddamn bucket in the goddamn river of spending that was clawed back from the discretionary COVID funds. It's a tiny proportion. It is literally meaningless. It's enough to send it to Ukraine. They'll send it to Ukraine probably. You don't address literally any other thing with this particular bill. Absolutely nothing. Yeah. To be fair, the House Speaker has a razor-slim majority, and Republicans don't control the Senate, where Minority Leader Mitch McConnell and his sidekick, Lindsey Graham, have announced that the only thing they care about is Ukraine. Well, at least the New York Post has one article today that's fair. I would say that that's a fair appraisal. The saved money will all go to Ukraine anyway in the end, won't it? Do you think that you're going to get any of it? I don't. I don't think that I'm going to get any of that in tax relief or any other form. By the way, again, please send no more super chats. I'll get through these and then I'll go offline. We're at an hour. Sparky, why is Blinken's white man's burden condescending style of diplomacy ineffective? Maybe he should just double down. Yeah, exactly. The Patriot Cairo. Medicare is the next massive debt ticking time bomb. Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, but Congress found a way. Congress can't even figure out how to make marijuana sales profitable. Do people really want to trust them with medical things? We need universal health care. Yeah, it'll be really great. It'll be like going to Cuba. Aussie's Robots. The debt deal is uniparty trash. When Bush, McCain, Romney, McConnell, etc. sided with Clinton and Biden, the curtain was pulled wide open. Agreed. Absolutely. Sparky, Trump has a bad habit of endorsing his enemies like McCarthy, Graham, McConnell, and Romney. Yeah, although sometimes it's out of pure political pragmatism. It does make strange bedfellows. None of these people actually enjoy Donald Trump. They are all opposed to him, but he has to pick his battles. And Sigilstone, I saw the Biden-McCarthy deal being negotiated live on Pornhub. It was the stream two dirty old bastards ass rape the entire nation. Exactly. Anyway, I'm going to go offline, but again, before you go, get a copy of the gun rights debate, How to Win It. Again, link in the description, cross-platform, pinned at the top on YouTube. Sold over 150 copies already. I'm rather happy with that. It will help you to debate gun rights with people who do not like them, giving various suggestions on which arguments are stronger or weaker. It's broken apart into 24 different sections, so peruse it at your leisure. It is available on Kindle too, but the link is to the paperback. You can switch back and forth. I don't know. I like physical books. I don't even like promoting my own fucking ebook releases because it just makes me feel weird. I'm not giving you anything tangible. It's a bunch of zeros and ones that's copyrighted. Oh my God, what a great spending of money. Get a paperback copy. If you don't like it, you can roll it and smoke it. That's about all. Peace out.